I'm working on this old tiled roof here, and we've got some slip tiles which have left areas where the rain is coming in. Now, just for a temporary fix until we completely re-roof this, I want to use this building for storage. So I want to patch these holes where it's leaking. So all I'm doing is just popping in these squares of roofing felt into the places where roof tiles have slipped away or cracked and left areas for the water to leak in. Before you get up on the roof, there's a couple of things that you really want to make sure you've got. One is a good sturdy pair of shoes. Footwear is important. Something with some grip that your feet aren't going to fall out of. You can feel where you're walking. Something with some sensitivity to it. These are good for that. The other thing is you need to keep your hands free, because you want to be able to keep as many points in contact with the roof as possible. And if you're carrying things around in your hands, then firstly, you're not able to keep your hands in contact with the roof. And when you start falling and things, you're going to have problems. So you've got to keep your hands free, which means you want some way of carrying tools around. A tool belt, ideally. You could maybe even use a rucksack. Sometimes I use a backpack to carry big things around on a roof. Those two things are important. The other thing is sensible trousers. Jeans are fine. They've got good grip on them. You know, I can sit here in these trousers. You don't want to be sitting up here in your polyester leotard or some shiny leggings or something like that. It's not going to be good. Leave your Superman outfit downstairs and wear something good and grippy. Jeans, fabric trousers, something like that. Now, when you're walking around on a tile roof, it's very easy to crack more tiles and you end up doing more damage than you're repairing almost. Basically, you're always going to crack tiles. If you walk on an old tile roof like this, you're always going to break some of the tiles, but you want that ratio to be good, so you can fix maybe 5 tiles for every tile that you crack. Or in fact, on this roof, you know, I'm almost cracking no tiles now. Now that said, on a new tiled roof, you should be able to walk around on it easily, no problems, nothing should crack, because it should be well made. When you've got an old roof like this, and particularly this roof is of fairly poor construction anyway. So what to do if you're faced with going up on a roof, you're going to walk around on a roof, and this applies to slate roofs, tile roofs, even applies to flat roofs to some extent. You want to have a look at the structure of the roof. So get yourself underneath. Now if you're lucky like we are here, you can see everything, it's all exposed. So here, I know on this roof, we have rafters that are running around 80 centimetre spacings, which is, what's this in inches? I guess a 30-inch spacing on the rafters, which is fairly wide. And between those rafters, we have battens that are running which hold the tiles. And so between a rafter, the only thing supporting the tiles and me is these battens, these thin laths of wood. They're about 1 inch thick at best when they were laid. And this roof, those battens have rotted out. They're kind of rotted, generally in very, very poor condition. And I don't trust those laths too much. So you'll notice as I'm talking to you here, I know that I'm sitting on a rafter. And when you're on the roof, it can be hard to know where the rafters are because I can't see from here. Sometimes you can get a sense of it from the dip in the roof, but it's never going to be precise. Wherever the roof dips at those high points is where the rafters will be. But on this roof, I can't really see that. So it can be helpful to have someone down below spotting for you the ends of the rafters and just telling you where they are. Once you've had a look under the roof and you've assessed your rafters, what's your rafter spacing? That's what you want to keep in mind, because as you're moving around on the roof, you really want to spread yourself across 2 rafters so that you've spread yourself across at least 2 battens, because what you don't want is all your weight to be on 1 or 2 battens if they're in poor condition. Other roofs, you won't be able to see exactly what your rafter spacing is. You'll be able to gauge it from something else, either from the end of the roof, from perhaps noggins or the structure inside. Maybe you've got exposed screw holes inside. You'll be able to hopefully make an estimate. But more modern roofs, you're looking at a 60 centimetre rafter spacing or 24 inches, something like this. This one is quite a bit wider than that, which makes it a weaker roof, which is actually probably why we've got these problems anyway. You've got 2 situations on the roof. One is where you're sitting in an area and you're doing some work for an extended period. In that case, you want to be on a rafter. You've got 2 rafters which you can tell at any point where they are. At ends of the roof, adjoining the walls, you have rafters. And at the top of the wall, you have a ridge plate. This is a lean-to roof. So at the top here, we have a ridge purloin basically running the length of the thing. I know that I can be walking up and down on the ends of this roof, and as long as I'm at the end, I'm walking directly on a rafter. In between there, determining where those rafters are can be difficult. You can, if you're fixing big holes, you'll be able to look through and see them. So sometimes you will be able to see. Otherwise, get someone to spot for you from below and tell you where the ends of these rafters are. So if you're working for an extended period in one area, sit yourself down on a rafter. Now, while you're moving around on the roof, there's a few things that you can do to minimize the breakage of tiles. One of those things is, as you're coming up the roof, look up and just identify any areas where you've got tiles which are sitting up. Because what's going to happen is, here's a broken tile for us to demonstrate with. These tiles can be sitting on the roof. As long as this is sitting flat on the next tile there, you can walk on this end. So you're going to walk on the ends of the tiles. You're going to have your foot on the end of the tile here, hopefully your whole foot on the end of that tile. That is the most secure place to walk around, and ideally you're going to walk with your feet sideways, so you've spread your foot across 2 tiles, or even 3 if you've got giant feet. The thing to bear in mind as you look up the roof, you want to look for tiles which are sitting off the tile below, so they're up at an angle like this. That means that there's something underneath that tile which is holding it up, and if you walk on this end of the tile, it's just going to snap, because the moment you put your weight on that, it's just going to pivot on whatever stone is there and simply snap, and it'll break the tile. So the first thing that you can do is just look around, see if you can keep in your mind where those tiles are sitting proud, and don't walk on them. So when you're walking around on the roof, you want to keep, ideally at all times, 3 points of contact with the roof. Best to keep your feet perpendicular to the run of the tiles, so that you're covering 2 tiles. The other thing you want to do is spread yourself across as many of these battens as you can. So in this situation, I'm on 3 battens, and really I'd be better with my feet like this, because I'm on 1 batten here, 1 batten here, a batten here with my hand, and there's going to be somewhere, I don't know where they are because I can't see them from here, there's 2 rafters which are bearing my weight here. Now maybe there's a rafter running here in the middle, and 1 there and 1 there, or maybe I've got my legs on a rafter. But because I've looked at the rafter spacing, which I know is about 80 centimetres, as long as I've got around 80 centimetres between my feet, I know I'm across 2 rafters. And that's why it's important to understand the structure of the roof, so that you know what is your weight bearing on. For a square metre of these tiles, a square yard of these tiles, probably weighs, I would say, around 100 kilos for a square metre of these. Maybe 80 kilos, maybe a bit more, who knows, but around that mark, 80, 100 kilos, which is about 220 pounds. And I weigh 83 kilos, hopefully, still. So that's a considerable increase on the weight, and if I put myself on just 1 point, basically, I'll kind of spread myself across probably a square metre. I'm essentially doubling the load on the battens between these rafters, and that's a big increase. Let me sit down again on a rafter. There's 2 risks on this roof. There's a risk of falling through the roof, which is minimal on anything but the absolute worst condition roof. This is a very bad condition roof. If it was any worse than this, I wouldn't walk around on it. So this is really, you know, the lowest quality that you would walk around on. The bigger risk is sliding off the roof. In that case, you know, it's a strong grip of your footwear that's going to save you. The incline of the roof is important. If the pitch of the roof is too steep, you shouldn't be walking on it at all without scaffolding and everything below. This is a single-story building. Underneath here is grass, and I'm very confident walking on here, so that's fine for me. The risk in slipping is if you're walking around with stuff in your hands, you've not got good footwear, you lose your grip, and you're just going to slide right off that roof. On things like this, you've got to keep your eyes open for this as you're walking around. There's a tile that's slipped. You can put your weight on that tile. This is another benefit to walking across 2 tiles with each foot. If you put your weight on that tile and that slips out there and you've lost your grip, you slide away, bam, you'll be on the roof. The load on that roof will be massive as you hit it, as you fall, and you're going to slide down and fall off the roof. So basically a good technique in walking around on this roof is what's going to keep you in good condition and alive and with your legs and arms working. Walking around on the roof, 3 points of contact spread across the tiles, okay? So you're between 2 rafters at all times, and you're just basically going to walk yourself across. You want to move across like a cat. You're almost going like a crab across the roof. Does it look professional? No, you know, it doesn't look professional. You watch any old school roofer, old school slater, they've got a sense for it, they've got a feeling for the roof. They read the incline, they're reading the tiles, they understand the structure, they know exactly what they're doing. But if you are an old school slater, you're probably not watching this video. Unless you're an expert walking around on roofs, just take it easy, move across like a crab. It looks a bit amateurish, but that's absolutely fine. Now that I've got to this end, we've got a rafter running here. When you've got tiles or slates that are broken, maybe I could stick that back in there, that's actually okay. It's probably going to slide out again. But where they've come off completely and they're just kind of sitting on the roof like that, get rid of them. You want water to be flowing off this roof quickly, particularly if you've got a poor quality roof. You want a rapid flow of water down the roof, in the gutter, and gone. Not pooling up, so we'll get rid of that. You'll see people jumping around on new roofs and saying, oh, you know, the way to walk on a tile roof is any way you like because it should be able to bear your weight. Well, that's all well and good if you've got a new tile roof, but maybe you've got an old tile roof like this that you're just looking to patch, or you make a small repair, you're fitting an aerial, something like that. But you do need to know how to move around on a roof like this. Moving left and right, we've kind of covered that. Moving up the roof, and what we want to do, again, we want to spread ourselves across, ideally, 2 rafters. Now I know there's a rafter here because that's the end. I know we're 80 centimeters, so I know we've a rafter here. So I know that I'm basically on 2 rafters here, and I'm just going to work my way up on the end. And you'll see, I'm not cracking any tiles here as I'm moving around. I'm just kind of moving nice and stealthily. Something like this is a good tile, but there's nowhere that I can see to slide this in, so that can go, but I'll work my way down to throw that. That's how to move around on one of these roofs. Actually, I could fit these patches from below, and I have done a few from below. It's just much faster to do it up here, because doing it from inside, you have to move the ladder around between the rafters, between the trusses, and it's a lot of work. Up here, it's very quick, you can just walk around, and it's also easier to see exactly where things need to be patched. On the other hand, it's good to go down inside and just have a look for daylight as well, because wherever there's daylight, and not exactly where there's daylight, but mostly where you can see daylight through the roof, water's coming through there. I'm sure I had another point to make about roofs. I'm sure I had something else to say. Oh yeah, make sure it's not raining. Do it when it's dry. You don't want to be sliding down a wet roof. Pick your weather.